so everybody's in their seats, buckled in, good to go. I'm dressed casually today because it's too hot. Summer finally arrived, and I couldn't imagine wearing a coat jacket tonight, so here we are. So this is a meetup group. Its theme is Opportunity Zones. I am the host. My name is Carl Dakin. I have a hand in a number of different businesses, but one of my primary ones is Dakin Capital, which provides consulting services, and we'll talk about that more in a moment when I put on my sponsor hat. But we're going to be talking about Oz deal structures tonight, and as we were talking about a little bit earlier, anytime you do an investment transaction, there are two or more sides to the opportunity, and you want to make sure that they balance, that they're recorded, that the thing is structured, not only so that it functions during the life of the investment, but it also serves as a way to attract an investor to look at your project, if you're a project manager, over all the other choices that are out there. When the Opportunity Zone legislation was passed, they created 8,700 plus areas across the United States and the U.S. territories, and now we're seeing a rapid growth of projects across the board, moving from just simple real estate to including businesses. And based upon some analysis we're doing, we now think that the number of business deals will probably outnumber real estate deals by 20 to 1, simply because even in a single real estate project, you may have multiple businesses. Talking about Opportunity Zone deal structures, this is the deal between the investor and the project manager. And we're going to be talking about things that go into the deal, standard contract terms that are important, some that may be a little more important for Opportunity Zone projects and other projects, and other things that could be done. But a key thing is that a good deal structure will attract investment, and you have to compete. So as I was saying before the technical difficulty break, we created 8,700 opportunity zones across the United States and in the territories. There are multiple projects now within each of one of those zones, not each of them, but most of them. And the result is we're expecting several 100,000 opportunity zone projects seeking money. And if you're one of those, you have to compete against all the other projects that are out there. And even though your deal is unique and you're wonderful, and we can't say enough good things about you, you still have to compete for the money. And so we want you to be thinking about a deal structure as a strategic way of attracting money, and in addition to making sure that you're getting properly rewarded for everything you're doing to put the project together. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We'll do that in 4 parts. We'll start off with some background on this group and why it's here and how we operate, and then we'll dive into the details on the subject of Opportunity Zone deal structures in 3 more parts, and we'll get done by our 6 o'clock exit point. So this is the sponsor page, and this is hosted by me, sponsored by me, but there are other people who have opportunities to also be sponsors, and if they are, they get a chance to come up here to the front of the room, talk about who they are, why they exist, and if they do that, then they also are included in the video recording, and that video recording is part of the YouTube post that's on the internet, so everybody in the world gets to see you, and that's a good thing. We'll talk about this more, but what I do is I've spent 40 years as a professional entrepreneur. I hold a legal license. I've been working with startups, mostly tech startups, during that time frame, and almost all of them have had to raise funding of some type from some source in order to go forward. So I've developed a bit of an expertise in every form of money, including alternative or new money or creative ways of putting deals together. And I work with companies to design, stage, and conduct capital campaigns to raise the funding that is necessary. With opportunity zones, there's been some interesting things developing, whereas we come to understand them better, it looks like we may come up with some new models for using opportunity zone money to either satisfy community problems or make it more attractive to investors. 2 of those that are in motion right now, one has to do with workforce housing, where I'm working with Tom Patton, who's a real estate broker on a project in Arvada where we've got a proposal in front of the real estate owner to develop the property for workforce housing and do it where the employer or a group of employers stand ready to buy the property at the end of the 10-year cycle. But during the 10-year cycle, the housing goes and is directed to the workers for that particular employer. So it assures that there is good quality housing available. And then at the end of the 10 years, the employer buys out the investors. They get a guaranteed rate of return, or it can be negotiated in a deal structure for a variable rate of return. But they can then, the employer can mark it up and sell this to their employees, still potentially below market, make money on it, have a loyalty program, and provide a good back-end cash exit for investors. So what we will be doing is we'll be approaching employers in the Arvada area who are concerned about workforce housing, get them to commit to this type of an agreement, and work with the city of Arvada. And if it all comes together, we're going to have a first-of-a-kind solution to workforce housing that is an alternative to affordable housing and other challenges for people of lower income in doing that. Another one is I'm working with a wealth management group right now on the potential of combining an opportunity zone investment with whole life insurance. And the concept is that you buy a whole life policy, you overfund it, and then you borrow money from the fund to make your investment. So you get the benefit of the opportunity zone tax incentive coupled with building the value within a whole life insurance policy and serving as your own bank, so that every time you make a payment back to yourself, it's building the value of the policy instead of just being a cost or expense. We're working on a school in a rural community in Colorado, putting together a business model. We hope to have a first cut of that done by next week. But it could be a very interesting way to double down on the benefits of opportunity zones, taking advantage of the 10-year term, which is often a lot of people are concerned about 10-year terms for good reason, but making it an advantage and making it work within the wealth building process that occurs within a life insurance policy. So we'll have more on that to report at our next meetup. And we're also working on some other models on employment skills training, other things that are common to community infrastructure or necessary for building innovation into a community, and particularly into a long-term, large-scale real estate project. So one of the things Nate and I are doing this summer is we're writing a journal article for the Bentham Sciences Journal on Technology Transfer and Entrepreneurship about the inclusion or embedding of innovation into large real estate projects to improve their value at the time of the cash exit. And we're currently collecting information on how this might work, and we're also working with a number of groups interested in creating innovation hubs as a kind of a standalone project or married to a larger real estate project. So this is kind of what I do, is people come to me and say, I need to raise funding, here's where I'm at. We'll look at all the classical sources of funding, we'll look at all the alternative sources of funding, including particular grants or economic development things, and sometimes we get very creative on combining different types of funding in order to come up with a workable solution. One of the projects I'm involved in is now an official sponsor. This is the Sugar Beet District project in Fort Collins. We had a long meeting yesterday working on issues with this project, but it's basically this plan. It's a 50-acre mixed-use development. We were acquiring property from 4 different landowners, which is part of the challenge we're dealing with now. And we're doing some land swaps, which involve acquiring 2 to 3 other pieces of property and moving them around so that everybody ends up with something more like what they wanted than what they started with. But this is intended to be a live, work, play community, creating a situation where living and working in the same area is an ultimate lifestyle. And we're looking at starting with a 90-room hotel, a brewery, distillery, and a spa and some other things that are up there that present and manifest this type of a lifestyle. And then we're going to build out a number of indoor grow for different things and some office space, 40 approximately residential units, which will be workforce housing. And this whole thing will be a true showcase for a different way of going about real estate development. So we're hopeful that if we can get the first property under contract, we'll do an opportunity zone raise for $3 to $5 million on that parcel. And then if we get the second major one under, we'll complete that for another $7 to $10 million to get through land acquisition and horizontal development. Not development, but the engineering part. We have a lot of financing lined up for doing the build out horizontally, and then each of the tenants will be responsible for their own stuff. A lot of the documents we're sharing through this group are coming out of this project, and as we get some more projects in motion, we'll have more things. We'd like to build a library of documents so that if there's something you're doing, you may be able to go in and see how we did it and borrow from that. And that's all free. So at this point, we have an opportunity to showcase projects. Anyone who has an opportunity zone project can contact me and put together a slide deck and stand up here in front of the room for 5 minutes and talk about their particular project and what they're doing, so that, one, we all know about it and we can try to maybe find you some help or match up with someone else. And then in addition to that, again, this is recorded, so it goes up on the YouTube site. And with the recording, we can also selectively break it out. So if you want to use it in your own promotional materials, we can give you a digital folder that's got that in it, and you can cut and paste that to your heart's desire on your own website or in your own slide deck as you go forward. For tonight, we are going to talk about, opportunity zones. We've been through a lot of this stuff as far as the benefits, so we're not going to go into depth on that. And we're just going to skip forward to the showcase. And one of the projects I'm working on, which is the New Mexico Opportunity Zone Fund, I'm going to share some information with that. There's a group called Invest New Mexico that is setting up the INM Oz Fund 2020. And we're just finishing the offering documents and hope to start raising funding in the near future. This is in New Mexico, based out of Albuquerque. It's going to be focused on opportunities within the state of New Mexico. As planned, it'll be a $25 million fund. It will include opportunities which have already been identified, and I'll share a little bit more on that. But it'll also be looking for other projects and other ways to bring value. There is only one existing multi-asset opportunity zone fund in the state of New Mexico at the current time, and a lot of people are interested in setting up their own funds or raising money for their own projects, but there's fewer people there with knowledge and understanding what's going on, so this group is going to help with that. They've already identified 5 projects, so about 10 million of the 25 million would go into a project on sustainable housing. They're going to have one on CBD production. They're going to do media content, which is going to cover a range of things, probably more film and TV related rather than social media. They're going to do some drone racing, which I'm looking forward to watching and observing to see how that works. But it wasn't clear to me if the drones were going to be carrying people. So this is where this got to be all kinds of fun, and I'm looking for more information. And then aviation maintenance. So these are 5 businesses in which the principals in the fund are going to have some stakehold in the underlying businesses. This is a starting point for raising their funding. Then in addition to that, they'll be looking for additional projects. I was at a program put on by the Alternative Funders Network in Albuquerque a few weeks ago. There are lots of people associated with economic development projects, local communities, incubators, accelerators, and some of the universities, as well as just small businesses everywhere, who need a little help either raising funding or even matching funding. And so one of the things that this group is going to do is we are going to look at putting up part of the money and then having someone else put up the remainder of the money. This could be an opportunity zone fund that's created by a business or a property developer for their own purpose, where they're getting part of the money raised, and then if they get to a certain threshold, then they would qualify to get the rest of the money from this particular fund. We're also looking at syndications, where people have set up other multi-asset funds and are looking to invest in Opportunity Zone projects. And we may become a player in multiple investments where somebody else is the lead on the syndicate, and this particular group will just put up part of the money for the overall project total. The key lead person on this is Ken Knoll, who lives in Albuquerque. This is his contact information, and for those of you who are interested, the slide deck will be distributed from tonight's program the next 24 to 48 hours. I'll try to get it out tomorrow before I go down to Buena Vista. And then typically within about a week, Steve will have edited our video program to make it look highly professional and overcome my speaking challenges and microphone challenges, and it all looks good. We post that up on YouTube, and then usually we'll have some documents, and Nate and I are working on a guide, which is kind of a more detailed narrative than what is presented at the front of the room, and it has extra links and examples and sometimes sample documents. That will all get out to you, and we're scrambling to get that caught up. So I think you'll see one from a couple episodes ago out here next week, and then from there hopefully we'll get you a couple a week until we're caught up before the end of the summer, and Nate has to go back to school and learning the hard way, so we'll go there. So anyway, this is one of the projects, and this is an example. Any fund or any project that is working out there wants to come up here and share information, just contact me in advance, get me a copy of the slide deck, and we'll go through that to make sure it's where it needs to be, and then you can present up here at the front of the room. So that brings me to the end of part one. Before we close for this evening, I want to go into resources. These are things that might help you work on your Opportunity Zone projects. There are a number we've been working with for a long time, but I've added a couple new ones that I think you'll find of value. And the first of these is the State of Colorado Office of Economic Development, International Trade. Janet Persky runs this program, and they are working very, very hard in the state of Colorado, and they were a leader in getting out there in front of Opportunity Zones. They have a matchmaking page here where if you have a project or a fund, it actually doesn't have to be an Opportunity Zone project. Any project the state of Colorado qualifies, but it's focused on Opportunity Zones. You can go there and list it. And you have to be careful in what kind of information you use, because it's supposed to be informative, like a slide deck, gain their attention. It's not supposed to be closing the deal. Another place to go to is an interactive map of Colorado Opportunity Zones. They have one at the state site, but they were doing some rehab on it recently, and it was not working the way I wanted. I haven't been back in time to see it. But Ross Hare with ozcolorado.com has created his own site. He's pulling a lot of the information from a national level, and he's supplementing that information with other information, which is useful if you're looking at trying to figure out where you fit into a particular zone. Hit that twice, my apologies. Go back one. As I mentioned, we record going all the way back to the second week of November. This is our 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there, event of this group. And we've recorded all of these. They're all up on YouTube. A few months ago, we started breaking them into parts so that you didn't have to watch for the full 2 hours and go from there. And it makes it easier to find it. But those recordings are all there for you to watch anytime. Then just last week, a gentleman set up a new Opportunity Zone group on Facebook. There are several of us signed up. We'll see how this does, but it's similar to the purpose of this meetup group, which is to share information on Opportunity Zone projects. This is at a national level, so you may be able to find some information there that we don't have locally. Then there's a newsletter put out by the Medora Ventures group called Oz Guide. This is like a newsletter. They work very hard to go out and find projects and news items about opportunity zones. And you can go to this site and subscribe for free. And if you want to track this in more detail. And again, this slide deck, we'll try to get this out to you. Actually, I'll try to do it late tonight because I'm going to be out of town for the next few days, so you can just pull these URLs from the slide deck directly. And the images will be in there to make it that much more interesting. Finally, this is me. This is our Meetup group. I also have been building a bit of a library of articles and different things and opportunity zones on my business website. And you can always reach out to me by email or by phone if you have any questions or anything's coming up. We're getting lots of good questions coming from people that are new or first time through this, and if we have an answer, we're happy to share it. And with Nate's availability this summer, we've got the ability to chase some of the harder questions and give you more detailed answers, or more detailed, we don't know what's happening on that issue, kind of a thing. So that covers the extra resources for tonight. So thank you all for coming, and look forward to each of you having a successful Opportunity Zone project.